Well, my friends, welcome back to Spot On with Link. Lauren, we have so much to discuss today. Of course, we're going to get into some politics. We have to talk about Karine Jean-Pierre and the Autopen and Joe Biden. And of course, we have some more information coming out about Tyler Robinson, the horrific assassin who took Charlie Kirk's life. We also have to talk about the royals. Over in the UK right now, you have President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. This is a massive state visit because this is the first time there's been a second state visit for a president of the United States because we have non-consecutive terms. So we're going to get into all of that after we pay some bills. So we're going to pay some bills, stick around, and then we'll discuss. Recently, I learned about colostrum, the very first milk known as liquid gold that babies receive from their mothers after birth, packed with proteins, natural growth factors, antimicrobial peptides that work to enhance your immune response, reduce inflammation, repair and balance gut lining, reduce bloating, and make your hair and skin look amazing. Today's sponsor, Cowboy Colostrum, offers the highest quality cow colostrum available in the US. 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. They don't overprocess or strip their colostrum, leaving it whole, full fat, and high protein for ultimate nutrient density. It's the highest quality bovine colostrum you can buy. Cowboy is easy to drink, made with delicious natural ingredients and no artificial flavors. Simply add a 3-gram scoop of either the chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, or strawberry into your coffee or smoothie. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/link and use code LINK at checkout. That's 25% off when you use code LINK at cowboycolostrum.com/link. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Well, President Trump landed in the UK last night, and within 10 minutes of landing, he posted on Truth Social, "There's no place like the White House." Now, this is what I relate to President Trump on the most, okay? A myriad of things, but number one, you guys know I like to sleep in my own bed. Unfortunately, I have to travel a lot, but I am pretty much a homebody. I like my own bed, I like my own bathtub, my own shower, my own food, my own things. I don't want to travel, okay? I don't want to be in these random hotels and other beds with sheets that I don't know who the hell has slept on. So President Trump, I thought it was funny. He landed in the UK for this big state visit, and within minutes, he's like, "There's no place like the White House. There's no place like home." He's clicking his heels, "There's no place like home." Because President Trump is also notorious. He will fly through the night as opposed to staying in a hotel, right? He would rather fly through the night than stay in a hotel for even 5 more minutes than he has to. And so I just found it kind of funny that he's posting on Truth Social, "There's no place like the White House," after landing in the UK. But he is living his best life, okay? President Trump is living his best life. There's pomp, there's circumstance, there's pageantry. It's incredible. So they landed, here they are getting off of Air Force One in the UK, and then they're going to greet some folks. I think they were greeted by the Lord Viscount of such and such. You guys, we're doing the best we can here. But they land and they greet some folks, and he goes down the procession line and he shakes hands. Now, this is what's so interesting about the state visit, right? President Trump is the first president to have a state visit with 2 different monarchs. If you remember, he loved Queen Elizabeth II. He loved the Queen. His mother, Mary McLeod Trump, really revered the Queen. And so when President Trump got to go over in his first term to see her, I imagine that was such a big moment for his family as well. I imagine his mom is smiling and looking down because look at my son. Not only is my son president of the United States, he's now over with the monarchy and having a massive state visit with pageantry, and they're pulling out all the stops and the red carpet. So I imagine Mary McLeod Trump would be incredibly proud of her son. But he did have a state visit with Queen Elizabeth. It was a very iconic one. There was a moment where he sort of accidentally walked in front of her and she was making jokes. I mean, they were 2 peas in a pod. They got along incredibly well. The Queen apparently had spoken about how much she respected President Trump and how much she liked him and his personality. And what's interesting about President Trump is that he had been sat down, I believe at 5 or 6 years old, to watch the Queen's coronation with his mother. She sat him down in front of the television set and said, "Let's watch this coronation." I think Queen Elizabeth was 25 when she became Queen of England. So President Trump has revered the monarchy his entire life, and I imagine it means a lot to him, especially to be back in the UK now for the second state visit. So King Charles is, of course, the monarch now, and so he is in charge of throwing a massive state visit and showing what they got. Right? This is an opportunity for the UK to show, here's our royal guard, here's our flyover, here's how we can put on a 165-person banquet and massive dinner, right? Here's how we can do a carriage ride And it reminded me about when President Trump was over in the Middle East, right? President Trump has this knack now when he goes to countries, they really do everything they can to impress him, right? He'll go to Doha, he'll go to Qatar, and they're riding on camels, and they're riding on this animal, then they're riding on donkeys, then they're doing, flyovers with fighter jets. This is what President Trump is experiencing now when he goes to these countries. And so I wasn't shocked to see the folks in the UK really pull out all the stops for President Trump. I also think there's this respect, right? There's this transatlantic respect right now because President Trump respects the monarchy respects him. He also has a deep respect for loyalty and institutions that have been passed down through generations, right? The number one thing to President Trump is loyalty. So when you look at Charles, that is someone who is loyal to his people and loyal to the crown. And someone was asking me earlier today, why do you think President Trump has such respect for Catherine and William? I think because he sees them as a couple so loyal to their jobs and to their duty. Catherine has also come out of health issues, of cancer. She's had to step up and be, public and out front while taking care of her kids and taking care of her health. William has had to step up, and they will be the king and queen of England someday. Hopefully not too soon. We love Charles and Camilla, but they will be the king and queen of England someday. Now, yesterday, if you've been following me on my Instagram, the best place to get the quickest updates are on my Instagram story. And I've told people you should mute me for 72 hours if you're not into the royals. But on my Instagram, I posted a news clipping. Camilla, the Queen of England, she came down with sinusitis yesterday. So she did not attend a funeral yesterday morning that she was supposed to attend because she said she had a sinus issue or sinusitis. She has made a recovery. Okay, as I said, I thought sinusitis was maybe code for I need to get my hair done. Okay, First Lady Melania is coming. Catherine's going to be here. She better not upstage me. Let me get my hair done and let me get myself together. So I thought that's maybe what was going on with the sinusitis because Camilla seems to have, reemerged today. She was in royal blue and a little kitten heel. So she's in royal blue and a kitten heel. But Catherine and William were actually the ones who greeted the president and First Lady Melania Trump as they got off of Marine One. They shook their hands. And according to sources who were there, and this has been reported publicly, President Trump said, "You are beautiful" to Catherine, and she is beautiful. She's stunning. She's classic beauty. And of course, to come out of her health issues, she looks incredible. And so he did greet her, and we have that up on the screen. We see them shaking hands. The First Lady Melania Trump looked incredible. We have to give such kudos to her stylist and her designer. She works with Hervé Pierre. He is an artist in every sense of the word. So many people around the First Lady, they are artists, and she's cultivated these folks because she's a talent scout. And so let me read you a little bit about their outfits as they're walking in. I know you guys want to know the fashion. Okay, so the First Lady is wearing Christian Dior haute couture, both the hat and the suit. The hat, if you're listening to us, is like a purple sort of plum. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, here's what she's wearing. She's wearing an Emilia Wickstead bespoke version of the Cheney coat dress, John Vito pumps in dark brown suede, Jane Taylor hat in brick red felt, and a Chanel calfskin bag with enamel handle. Now, people online were writing, I'm a serious journalist here, but people online, they were writing, why do the royals carry their handbags around as opposed to, the First Lady Melania Trump? You'll never see her carrying a handbag into a state dinner. I don't know. It's something the royals have done, Queen Elizabeth was known for carrying her purse. And there were folks who even told me she had a code with her guards, right? When she was done talking to someone, she might shift the purse to this side. And then when she wanted to move on, she might shift the purse here. And so it's interesting to see Catherine with a purse. You've got Camilla carrying a purse. I want to know what's in them. Are they going to show us? Does she have a BlackBerry in there? What's in there? A banana? I don't know what's in there, but they look incredible. And as I've been saying, this is the gay Super Bowl. Okay, this is the gay Super Bowl. It's fashion, it's clothing, it's art, it's banquets, it's looking at artifacts, it's royal carriage rides, it's flyovers, it's pomp, it's circumstance, it's pageantry. This is the gay Super Bowl, okay? In all of the darkness in our world right now, we are not going to feel guilty for being excited about something, right? You should not feel guilty for being happy and looking at these world leaders come together for a big display of what their countries can do. And I think a lot of people these days, they feel like, should I be guilty for being excited about this? I'm still overcome with grief and sadness from the passing of Charlie Kirk, from some of the darkness and things that are going on in the world and the political violence and the extremism. But this has been on the books for months, and I'm going to follow it and cover it because it's what I've done for years. I've always been the person who gets up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. here in the States to watch all of the big royal events, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a coronation, whether it was the Queen's funeral in September of 2022, which feels like yesterday, just 3 years ago, right? Almost 3 years ago to the day. And so I've always been the person who gets up, and we should not feel guilty for being excited, because it's exciting to see President Trump riding in a carriage. We have that up on the screen. So President Trump was living his best life. He's doing carriage rides. The First Lady was in there with Queen Camilla. So I don't know what they discussed. I don't know if they're making a lot of small talk, but I do think, President Trump gets to ride in style. He's either in the Beast, or he's in a horse-drawn carriage, or he's in Air Force One, or he's in Marine One. I mean, this is a guy who is riding in style. Also, golf carts on the golf course. I think this sort of trumps all of that, pun intended, getting a royal carriage ride. And some folks were saying, is it safe? Is it safe in the carriage? Yes, it was safe. Everybody is fine. There was a ton of security. There were a ton of screening, security protocols. So everybody is safe. They made it through the carriage ride. There was a beautiful flyover, a red, white, and blue flyover. Maybe we can put up on the screen. It was so incredible. Everyone was posting about it. I really felt like Charles and Camilla and the UK in general, they were showing, hey, we respect you, and we respect what you've done in this country. We respect what you've built as a political behemoth, as a force, President Trump, because to come back, to make a political comeback like that last November is just something that we've never seen on the global world stage. We've never seen it before. And I think they also see what President Trump has been able to do with the border, securing the border here in the United States. They've seen what President Trump has been able to do handling mass migration, illegal immigration, the economy, and also the way he can just take on anything, right? Anybody who stands in President Trump's way, he's able to barrel through them and get what needs to be done. And so I think Charles and Camilla respect him. I heard from a few people, and I found this online corroborated in a few places. Apparently, President Trump had tea with King Charles, then Prince Charles, at Mar-a-Lago in 1988. Okay, so in 1988, 12 plus 25 years, that's a long, enduring friendship. And it's very rare, okay, at the upper echelons of politics and all these world leaders to have friendships that last so many decades. And we have up on the screen, here they are shaking hands and coming together. The First Lady looks incredible. People were comparing her to Jackie O. I would agree. She looks incredible. I also felt the hat, for me as someone who followed Princess Diana closely and who still follows her closely, I felt like the First Lady Melania Trump's hat was an homage in a way to Princess Diana's hat, very similar shape to what she has worn. Some other folks posted online, we're just looking at this now, President Trump's tie was also a purple sort of plum that matched the First Lady's outfit and her hat as well. So I don't know if that was coordinated. I actually heard that it was probably not coordinated, but President Trump, he's been doing some purple ties in this term, and I think it's interesting to see how they coordinated. And they said also that Charles and Camilla had coordinated. I believe he's wearing a light blue tie. She's wearing a blue outfit. So let me read you a little bit more about what's happened and what's going on. So at St. George's Hall at Windsor, they will provide a 165-foot long table, and they will host about 160 guests. So you'll have President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Charles, Camilla, Catherine, William, and also have other members of the senior royal family. You'll probably have members of President Trump's staff, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, other dignitaries. This really is a big ticket item, which tells you how much President Trump has come back. When we talk about political comeback, right, to have everybody want to come out in droves, it's exciting. And I heard some folks on the news earlier, they were talking about the fact that President Trump isn't your typical state visit. He's not your typical world leader. And apparently Charles and Camilla were giddy. Apparently they were giddy and excited for them to come. They're like, oh my God, President Trump is coming, because Trump's a rock star. Trump's the modern day rock star, right? We don't have big stars anymore. And so I think they were excited, and they've never done anything at this scale, this massive. And they really just pulled out all the stops because they thought, you know what, we're having fun. And a lot of the reporters who are there, they've shared President Trump and King Charles, they've sort of had this bro-friendly, avuncular relationship throughout the day, and maybe we'll see it tomorrow as well during the state visit, where they have their hands on each other's backs. They're laughing, they're being jovial. And so it's interesting to see these two guys who've lived through eras and decades and just seen the world change so much before their eyes come together and really have this enduring friendship. And so we have some more footage up on the screen from the trip if you haven't seen this yet, but there was a carriage procession. Of course, there was an inspection of the guard. Then there was a flyover. Then they went to a beating retreat musical performance. Then they visited St. George's Chapel, where they had a beautiful choir of young kids sing for them in their robes. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And so they're just really having a great time over in the UK, and it's great for transatlantic trade. It's great for the relationship between the two countries. President Trump will then go to meet with Keir Starmer tomorrow at Chequers Estate. That will be more of a press conference and a conversation about policy. The First Lady Melania Trump will then go with Princess Catherine, I believe, to Frogmore Gardens to do an event with the Scouts. And so what's interesting is that both Catherine and Melania, they're more reserved. People say they're quiet and they're really just, quiet and reserved people. Yes, they're reserved, but when they get together, I think we'll see them have fun and we'll see them have a good time. And so I'm excited to see that event tomorrow. If you look up on the screen, you see President Trump sort of inspecting the guard, and he makes, a conversation and chit chats with some of them. And so he's really having his best life. I'm worried now that he's having so much fun, he's not going to want to come home. But President Trump is having a great time. One of the most important things they did over in the UK, one of the most important things, they went and they laid a wreath at Queen Elizabeth's tomb. They went and laid a wreath where Queen Elizabeth is. May she rest in peace. She passed away in 2022 and they went there. And so I hope that it was meaningful. I imagine it was meaningful. Of course, it's Charles' mother, the former monarch, and it's someone who President Trump really revered and got to know as president. He got to know her as president of the United States during his previous state visits. And so President Trump, they went and laid a wreath. Here we have some footage up on the screen from the beating ceremony. This is sort of an ancient, old school military ceremony with music, and there was a flyover. It really was pulling out all the stops. The weather looks a little windy and chilly. You can see the hedges and the bushes blowing there. So we're going to need some hairspray, but no, it looked incredible. If you ever had FOMO in your life, it's for this event because it just is so, so, so magical. And I think so much tradition. We talked about this recently with Cracker Barrel and some of these brands changing their logos on smaller scales. There's been this rejection of tradition in the West where we don't want to accept tradition and honor tradition. And what I love so much about the monarchy is, the monarchy is not infallible. They've had their mistakes. These are humans like everybody else, and they're trying to navigate and evolve. But what I respect about them so, so, so much is that they honor that tradition. They honor that tradition and it goes by the book. And we have to have some things in this world that are traditional. Like in my family, we're going to put up a Christmas tree every year and we're going to put these ornaments on, and then we're going to do these ornaments, and then we're going to have this for dinner. We're going to do this on Christmas Eve. It's important to have some traditions because the world is so topsy-turvy. The world is so crazy and chaotic, and bad things can happen on a dime, as we've seen recently. So it's very important. It's very important to honor traditions when you can and come together and celebrate some good times when you can. And that's what I think I loved about President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump's visit so much. So let me see if there's anything we missed here. We got the outfits, we got the procession, we got the carriage rides, we got the beating ceremony, we got the flyover. Tonight is the banquet. By the time you watch this, the banquet will have happened. A lot of people are waiting. They're waiting with bated breath to see what the First Lady wears, what Catherine wears, what Camilla wears. I think honestly, on the echelon of who we're waiting to see, it's First Lady Melania Trump, Catherine, and then some folks, of course, will want to see what Camilla has worn. But it's going to be exciting to see these two women come together, and I'll be breaking it down more if you guys subscribe and tune in. But I couldn't be more excited about the state visit. It's just over the top, iconic, incredible, and it's a great feeling to see these two men come together, like I said, who've endured through decades. I think the last thing I'll say, President Trump has been famous since he's 25 years old, 30 years old. He's been through ups, he's been through downs that he's very open about, right? I think he went on Ellen's show and talked about being $900 million in debt and having to claw his way back from that. He had a hit TV show. He becomes president. He becomes president again, survives an assassination attempt. This is someone who now has a majority in the House, the Senate, he has the executive branch, right? This is someone who is the comeback kid, Teflon Don. When you look at King Charles, he's someone who's had ups and downs in his career too. He's been through so many eras. He was born famous. He's been under a microscope his whole life. And there's so few people you can come together who have that experience. And so to see Trump and Charles come together, they're kind of the last few guys who can get together and say, remember this era, remember this happened, and they're still standing and they're still here. And so I have such respect for the crown, for the monarchy. I know some of you are not into the monarchy, but I love the tradition of it. I love that President Trump is over there. I think it's important for the history books to continue these state visits. And I want to say thank you to the folks in the UK for embracing President Trump. There are folks out in the streets in MAGA hats and Trump was right about everything hats. And so thank you for embracing and welcoming our delegation, but we've got to move on to some more topics. We have to discuss Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's assassin. Trusting insurance agents or the government with your Medicare is way too risky. That's how millions of people got stuck on the wrong plan and they don't even know it. In fact, the Department of Justice just sued 3 major Medicare brokers for pretending to be unbiased while allegedly pushing people into the plans that got them the biggest kickbacks. Super shady. And honestly, Medicare is confusing by design. No one should have to figure this out alone. That's why you should know about Chapter. Chapter does things differently. They're the only Medicare advisor that compares every single plan nationwide nationwide, not just a few that line their pockets. And because of that, they save people an average of $1,100 a year. So whether you're brand new to Medicare or already signed up, this could be the most important call you make. If you're on the best plan, they'll tell you, and if there's a better one, they could help you save thousands. It's free and it's fast, takes less than 20 minutes for them to review your options. So call 661-370-3275 to actually feel confident about your Medicare. Now we have to talk about Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, and some of the new developments. He's currently in custody right now. They're seeking the death penalty for him. And in fact, when he found out they were seeking the death penalty, he didn't really even seem that shocked. He just sat there pretty emotionless. He didn't break down crying. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't yelling. I think, in my opinion, he's a sociopath. I think there has to be some sociopathic tendencies there to pick up a gun and shoot someone like Charlie Kirk, who is just coming to college campuses to have a dialogue. They shot the guy who's a moderate who wants to have a dialogue with people, right? That's how disgusting the left is right now with the political extremism, the political violence. And then there are folks in the media and the mainstream media who's still coming out saying, we don't know the motive. This was like Thomas Crooks. Remember Thomas Crooks in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, who almost killed President Trump? They said, we don't know his motive. He was MAGA. Excuse me? Objectively speaking, I'm not in Mensa here, okay? But I'm a pretty common sense kind of guy. Someone picks up a gun and shoots Charlie Kirk or shoots President Trump, they're not MAGA. They're trying to take out the biggest conservative political figures in world history. You understand what I'm saying? And so I think it's really a miscarriage of justice that the mainstream media won't just come out and say, you know what? This is a radical leftist who fell down these internet rabbit holes, who was indoctrinated with this woke ideology, he rejected everything his family believed in, he was deranged, and he picked up a gun and he shot Charlie Kirk. And now a mother, Erica, doesn't have her husband or the father of her children. That's what's happening. That's the reality. If the media can't say that that's the reason your ratings are in the gutter, there's a reason people are turning off the mainstream media right now, because you won't just be straight up with your audience. Tell your audience this is what is happening. So they also know what's coming down the pike, because I have this weird suspicion, this sneaking, horrible suspicion that if we don't nip this in the bud, the political extremism is going to continue being ratcheted up. You could have copycats. You could have copycats who see what has happened. You know, what happened in Butler, what happened to Irina Zarutska on the train in North Carolina, what happened to Charlie Kirk. And you're going to have some copycats. And Irina Zarutska, young girl born in 2002, coming home from work, Ukrainian immigrant, came to the United States, she's paying her bills, working in a pizza shop, stabbed, and bystanders did nothing. And now that seems like old news. The media doesn't want to cover that. If we weren't here talking about it, who is? So you have Irina Zarutska, you have Charlie Kirk, all of this violence people are being inundated with on their social media all day long. I pray we don't have copycats. I think we need to have more monitoring of some of these groups online. We have to get into some of these groups and see these chats and these conversations. If there's a group of transgender furries planning an extreme violent attack on a major political figure, I kind of want to know about it. I want to know about it. I'm all for people having their privacy, but we've got to have more behavioral specialists and tech specialists in some of these online chat rooms and groups that are public groups, seeing what's happening. Because they were allegedly in the group, from what we know so far, allegedly in the group, according to Kash Patel, discussing this. They were allegedly discussing this, texting about it, talking about it, and he's apparently all but copped to it. His own father is the one who turned him in, from what we know so far. And so let me read you some of these counts. I know I got off topic, but I'm a little heated over this because I'm sick of the media saying we don't know the motive and we don't know the motivation. The motivation was to take out a big conservative figure. Okay, this guy's probably not right wing. So count one, aggravated murder, a capital offense for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others. There are several other counts like felony discharge of a firearm. The last big counts that I think we need to mention, witness tampering, which is a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police question him. Count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. This is a Class A misdemeanor for committing homicide knowing that children were present and they may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression. So they're seeking the death penalty. I'm happy about it. Apparently in Utah, from what I've been told, they have the firing squad. I know some big conservative figures have offered to do the firing squad themselves. We, of course, have to have due process. I want everyone to have due process, but let's get it going. Okay, I don't want us to drag our feet on this for years. Let's get due process and let's bring down the hammer of justice, because there's never really going to be closure for anyone. I actually didn't feel better, if I'm being totally open and candid with you guys. I was watching it live and I put out a tweet immediately with all accounts. When I was watching it live and they said they're seeking the death penalty, I still didn't feel better. Still doesn't bring Charlie back. I still keep thinking of those images and videos of Charlie in the casket and I'm going, Charlie Kirk is in that casket? You tell me Charlie Kirk is in there. It still hits me sometimes throughout the day. And so while I am glad that they are seeking the death penalty because it's what is due, it's what he deserves, it's what he has earned for being a disgusting, vicious assassin, allegedly, it doesn't bring Charlie back. It doesn't bring the closure that I think, we imagine it might or that it could, but it's something. It's something. And I think it lets other people know, hey, we're going to have the death penalty here. You're going to get the firing squad if you do this. I think this kid thought, in a way, he could get away with this. I think he thought maybe I'll get away. But then maybe he wanted some fame, maybe he wanted some infamy and attention for himself. And I think that's also why on this podcast we haven't put up pictures of Tyler Robinson, because these folks just want attention. We've seen it before time and time again. They want to go down in history as sort of like these sick, folk heroes for the extreme left, right? I think there are folks on the left rejoicing and cheering the fact that Charlie Kirk is dead. You can look on X, you can look on Blue Sky. They're cheering on the fact that he's gone. And I think in some way they look at this guy as like a folk hero because they've called, figures on the right Nazis, Hitler, threats to democracy. So those folks, I imagine they believe Tyler Robinson did a good thing, took out a fascist Nazi threat to democracy. And that's, not who Charlie was. He was anything but the sort. Anything but the sort. He was a father, a man of great faith, who loved his kids, who loved his country. Was actually incredibly moderate. He wanted secure borders. He wanted common sense. He didn't want you to waste money on college and come out with nothing. And so I think it is, very, very interesting to see the media and the folks on the left continue to be unmasked. They have not toned down the rhetoric and they continue to sympathize with the killer. And we have to talk about someone from ABC. Okay, we have to talk about Matt Gutman from ABC. And of course I have this in the notes because I don't watch ABC very often. So he described text messages between suspected Charlie Kirk killer Tyler Robinson and his transgender roommate as very touching. He said the text between Tyler Robinson and his transgender furry lover were very touching. Okay, they're writing about these people like it's some Shakespearean novel. This is a disgusting killer. Disgusting killer. And the reason your ratings are going down is because you won't just be straight up with your audience. So we actually have a clip of ABC's Matt Gutman. Let's play the clip and then discuss a little bit further.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
So I just put my notes down. There's nothing on my phone. I'm putting my notes down because I don't even need to read the notes. He apologized. He issued an apology. I don't think someone who thinks text messages between a killer, alleged killer, and his transgender furry roommate are touching. I don't need to get my news from someone who thinks that's touching. You know what? You know who was touching? Was Charlie Kirk when he was touching the lives of millions of people and getting them inspired to get involved in faith, family, and conservative values. That's what was touching. You know what was touching? Erica Kirk's address to the nation. Did y'all call that touching? Because I saw a bunch of people on the left denigrating her online, making fun of a widow on the internet. Was that touching for you guys? So I really don't need to even hear this apology. I don't need to read it word for word. If you want to go find it, we put it up on the screen. You can pause. You're welcome to look at it. But I don't take any of these folks seriously. And I mentioned this earlier. I was on Dan Wooten's show, Outspoken. If you guys know him on YouTube, great British commentator. One thing we spoke about is that Charlie Kirk's audience, they didn't watch the mainstream media. He was able to reach people on TikTok and X and Instagram and these viral videos on YouTube. They didn't watch the mainstream media, so they don't know who this guy is anyway. So this person from ABC who's, describing the text as touching, guess what? Barely anybody knows him. He'll never come close to being as relevant as Charlie Kirk is. And I use the present tense is and will continue to be. But no, there's a reason people are turning off these networks, because you guys have betrayed the trust of your audience. If you came out and told your audience the truth, you said, you know what? Tyler Robinson, disgusting guy. Here's what he did. Here are the counts. Here's why they're seeking the death penalty. But instead you want to come out and sort of show sympathy to him because he's the other. It's like what the left does to illegal immigrants and people committing crimes in this country. We saw it with Abrego Garcia, okay? Perfect example. We saw this with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, right? He's a Maryland man. He's a father. He's a sweet guy. Oh, he did beat his wife and commit crimes, and he's been here illegally and done XYZ allegedly, but he's a Maryland man. The mainstream media and the folks on the left, because of maybe who they're funded by, I don't know, they're always going to otherize and try to victimize the person who's actually the criminal. They're going to try to make the criminal and the perpetrator of violence the victim. And it's what I'm sick of. And there's a reason people are turning it off. So everybody's going to keep turning them off. alternative media is going to continue to grow, and we will be watching Charlie Kirk's memorial on Sunday in Arizona. Apparently over 60,000 people will be in attendance. President Trump is speaking. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles was just announced. Marco Rubio, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, Sergio Gore. The list goes on. I'm sure they will announce more speakers. Erica Kirk. God grant her the strength to get up there and speak in front of 60,000 people, and honestly, the world. She got up and spoke 2 days after losing her husband. So I imagine she will have the strength to get up. I don't know where it comes from. It must be God-given. And she'll have the courage to get up and address the nation and deliver a eulogy for her husband. Charlie Kirk is apparently getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom as well. So we send love to their family. I'm getting emotional thinking about it now, but I have to be honest, I just don't even care what the left has to say anymore. I don't care what the mainstream media has to say. Don't care what the left has to say. I live in my world of common sense and reality. You guys can live over there where you describe those texts as touching, but we got to pay some bills. After we pay some bills, we'll be back. Fad diets over the years like juice cleanses, cabbage soup diet, and raw food diets have caused people to go up and down in weight for years. Doctors call it weight cycling. Half of Americans do it. Weight cycling is when you lose 10 or so pounds, but then you put the pounds back plus a couple more. The bottom line here, most people need help to stop weight cycling, and here's a great way. Non-prescription lean was created by doctors. Lean is an oral supplement, not a GLP injectable, and the science is impressive. Its studied ingredients also target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting it to energy. And burning fat helps keep the weight off. If you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace and keep it off, add lean to your diet and exercise lifestyle. Get 20% off when you enter link at takelean.com. That's code link at takelean.com. Last but not least, speaking of gaslighting and lying to the American people, we have to talk about Karine Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre, the former White House press secretary. You remember, she had that big binder. She carried around that big binder with Post-it notes. It looks like it was 10 pounds, but it was full of nothing. It was full of nothing. You opened that binder, she had no answers. She had no answers for anything, for the open border, for the worst border in American history, for Joe Biden's decline. All of these questions were basically told she couldn't keep up with Joe Biden. He's so quick, I can't keep up with him. I just cannot keep up with it. Mind you, the guy was falling down. Joe Biden was calling out in the crowd at events to people who were dead. He was like, Jackie, hey, Jackie, you in the crowd? And they're like, sir, Jackie is dead. So Karine Jean-Pierre, I don't take her seriously. I question, the authenticity and the veracity and the truthfulness of everything that comes out of her mouth because she's a very unserious person. Okay, she's a very unserious person, but she also has a book coming out that she's promoting. She has a book coming out about how she's left the Democratic Party and she's gone independent. If this is her idea of being independent, good luck to you, sweetheart. But she was also called in, and this is all over the news. Of course, there was a lot of other news, so they try to brush this under the rug. But she was called in last Friday by the House Oversight Committee, led by James Comer, to discuss the Autopen and Biden's decline. But she said, between 2009 and 2025, she did not see a change in Biden's competency. Okay, this is what she says. She did not see a change in Biden's competency. I call BS. I call a flag on the play. I don't know what flag on the play means, but it's a sports metaphor, and that's what I'm calling. She was apparently there for 6 hours giving testimony. 6 hours, and she had no answers. Either someone's gotten to her and said, shh, be quiet. If you love your friends and family, don't talk. No, someone's either gone to her or she's still lying and carrying water for Biden. I don't know what it is. Maybe she thinks she can't have a future in, presidential politics if she doesn't just, toe the party line, cover for Biden. I'm not sure. But let me read you a little bit more. While Karine Jean-Pierre acknowledged Biden, who's now 82, was not the same speaker he was when she met him, she couldn't attribute a reason for the speaking change. Maybe dementia, maybe Alzheimer's. In addition, she also acknowledged that talking points were given to her by various advisors, but those relating to President Biden's health and mental acuity were handled exclusively at the senior level. Senior level to me says Jill Biden. It says Jill Biden, it says her little chief of staff, it says Jeff Zients, it says all of these people. That's what I think was going on. I think you had this sort of unelected bureaucracy, these shadowy figures around Biden who were pulling the puppet strings. The fact that Biden was non-compos mentis and didn't know what day it was actually immaterial to them. It was immaterial to them because they just wanted a vessel. They wanted a vessel, and then they could go in and they could have the Autopen sign things. They could, pass whatever they wanted. They could do what they wanted. They were actually, I think, happy in a way. I think there was some happiness with the fact that Biden wasn't all there, because when someone's not there, what can you do? Take advantage of them. We see it in nursing homes all the time. Actually, you see some folks in nursing homes who are abused, They're not fed, they're pushed around, they have their money stolen, their wallets stolen. People come in and take advantage of old people online. They try to take their money and get them to wire them into accounts and have fake identities. Old people get taken advantage of. And I think President Biden, the fact that he was pretty much a vessel, was beneficial to Jill, the first lady, certainly beneficial to Hunter, allegedly, with his business dealings. It was beneficial to this, unelected bureaucracy of shadowy figures who are pulling the puppet strings on Biden. But Karine Jean-Pierre, I just don't ever see her having a future in politics or media in a big way. Maybe she can get an MSNBC deal. She can maybe get a contract on MSNBC because they'll sign anybody. They've got Simone Sanders, they had Joy Reid on there, but no one will take her seriously because if Karine Jean-Pierre wanted to be a truth teller, she wanted to be a journalist, she wanted to be someone who had a future maybe on The View. I think she probably would love to be on The View. Let's say The View, for example. If you want to be on that show, you're going to have to up the ante a little bit and speak the truth. If Karine Jean-Pierre came into that testimony and said, you know what, Biden was in bad shape, I regret not speaking up sooner, people would actually have a modicum of respect for her. You took an oath to the country, not to Joe Biden. You should have told us at the time. But if you came out and spoke the truth now, we would say, you know what? Welcome to the side of truthfulness, honesty, and authenticity. In a way, Kamala Harris has a book coming out called 107 Days, or maybe it's just come out, it's coming. 107 Days, which is pretty much all that's interesting about Kamala Harris. And in the book, she kind of throws Biden under the bus. From the excerpts we've seen and talked about on this podcast and in former episodes, she's willing to throw Biden under the bus. Why not? The guy's old, not going to make it much longer. He doesn't seem to be all there. Why not throw him under the bus? I think Jill Biden, though, now that I think about it, Jill, the wife, is going to go down in history as one of the most unlikable women in presidential politics, and one of the most unlikable women in history, to be honest. What type of woman lets her husband carry on in the public eye when he's just making a fool of himself? Who lets her husband get up on stage in front of the world? Lets her husband get up there and just make a fool of himself, and he's just bobbling and bubbling around, doesn't know what day it is, calling out to dead people in the crowd, can't form coherent sentences. And then Jill Biden, in a patronizing tone, she goes, "You did so good, Joe. You answered all the questions." What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. So I question Jill Biden as a wife and a mother. Who does that? And Jill Biden, she's someone who I think cared more about the lifestyle of being first lady, and this was reported as well from a myriad of sources and journalists who covered the White House. She was actually the one clinging to power more than anything. Jill Biden was the one who didn't want to go. She didn't want her husband stepping aside. She was going to push and ram him through, because the last thing she wanted to do was go back to Rehoboth Beach or go back to Scranton. That's not what Jill Biden's plan was. No. She liked flying on Air Force One. In fact, we have pictures of her sitting behind the desk on Air Force One. We have her sitting, at the head of a table running cabinet meetings. That's who Jill Biden is at her core, a power-hungry, despicable woman. And she's the one who continued to jam and ram Biden down our throats, and she put the country in danger. If you are a real wife and a real woman, you would have stepped in. You would have stepped in and you said, you know what, it's time to go home. It's time to pass the torch. We didn't want you passing the torch to Kamala. That was kind of the catch-22 there. The catch-22 with Biden, if I'm just speaking off the cuff, the catch-22 with Biden is that Kamala was so bad, I think the folks around him thought, well, man, Biden's brains are basically oatmeal at this point, but Kamala's also a freaking idiot. I was about to cuss. My mom's Bible study is watching, so I won't. But Kamala's a freaking idiot who can barely form coherent sentences, and she seems like a drunk as well. And you ask Kamala a question about the border, why haven't you visited the border? I haven't visited Uganda either. Haven't visited Spain. It's like, ma'am, we're just asking you to go down to the border. You were kind of put in charge of the border, you dumb bitch. Oh, sorry. But yeah, no, Kamala Harris, she's, one of the most uncouth, disgusting, stupid women in politics as well. And so I think that's probably what saved Joe Biden in a way. They didn't push him out because they were like, well, we don't want to be stuck with Kamala. We don't want to be stuck with her. But Karine Jean-Pierre, to bring it all back, to circle back, to use a former press secretary's term, we'll circle back to Karine Jean-Pierre. Don't see a future for her. Don't think people are going to take her seriously. Don't think people are really going to be buying the book unless you really go there. And it doesn't seem like you're going to go there because in the 6 hours of testimony, from what my team has seen, from what's available so far, you allegedly said Biden was fine and that, hey, if you got talking points from higher up to say he was in great shape, no. That's a lie in my opinion as well, Karine, because you said that you couldn't keep up with him, that he was so sharp. That wasn't just a talking point passed to you from on high. That was a personal anecdote, a testimonial. That was your testimony of how great Biden was doing. Great shape he's in. So I don't take Karine Jean-Pierre seriously, but one thing I do take seriously is you guys. I absolutely love you. I'm so grateful that you tuned in. I love that we can cover a myriad of topics on this show. We can talk about the royals, President Trump, pageantry, dresses, outfits, shoes, purses, but we can also talk about the Autopen. The Autopen scandal is a big scandal. It's going to go down in history as one of the biggest political scandals. We had to talk about Tyler Robinson, the alleged assassin in the Charlie Kirk investigation. We had to discuss it all because that's the way the world is. We have high highs and low lows in this world, and you never know what the news cycle is going to bring you. But I love you guys. I will be back on Friday with a little bit more. Be sure to keep up on my social media because I'm discussing everything that's going on my Instagram stories and on X, so be sure to follow me. But be sure to also kiss your loved ones. And if you're home alone today, if you're alone at home, I'm thinking about you as well, and we are so grateful that you tuned in. So I love you guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye.